Chapter 7, Section 3. Congress takes control of Reconstruction. By the end of 1865, every Southern state had formed a new government. The 13th Amendment had been added to the Constitution. In President Andrew Johnson's view, Reconstruction was over. After looking at the black codes enacted across the South, many in the North disagreed with Johnson. One Republican newspaper wrote, "We tell the white men of Mississippi that the men of the North will convert the state of Mississippi into a frog pond before they will allow such laws to disgrace 1 foot of soil in which the bones of our soldiers sleep and over which the flag of freedom waves." Chicago Tribune, December 1865. Radical Republicans challenged Johnson's Reconstruction. When Congress met in December of 1865, many lawmakers were of the opinion that Reconstruction had hardly begun. A group of radical Republicans led by Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner were especially critical of Johnson's plan. The radicals had been abolitionists before the war. Now they were determined to reconstruct the nation on the basis of equal rights for all. Their commitment to racial equality put them on a collision course with the president. Early in 1866, the radical Republicans joined with more moderate lawmakers to enact 2 bills designed to help former slaves. The first extended the life of the Freedmen's Bureau beyond its original 1-year charter and gave the Bureau greater powers. The second, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, took direct aim at the black codes. It declared that African Americans were entitled to equal benefit of all laws enjoyed by white citizens. To Congress's surprise, President Johnson vetoed both bills. The continuation of the Freedmen's Bureau, he argued, was too costly and would encourage freedmen to lead a life of indolence, laziness. He rejected the Civil Rights Act as a violation of states' rights. In one of his veto messages, Johnson claimed to be representing the will of the people. "This claim is modest," quipped one Republican, "for a man made president by an assassin." Republicans gathered the 2/3 majority in each house needed to override Johnson's veto of the Civil Rights Act. This was the first time in American history that a major piece of legislation became law over a president's veto. Next, they enacted a new Freedmen's Bureau bill. When Johnson vetoed it, Congress overrode his action once again. To further protect the rights of freedmen, Congress passed the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. The basic principle underlying this amendment, Stevens says, was that state laws shall operate equally upon all. The amendment reversed the Dred Scott decision by defining all persons born or naturalized in the United States as citizens. It further prohibited any state from denying its citizens due process or the equal protection of the laws. The 14th Amendment became a major issue in the election of 1866. President Johnson toured the North, making fiery speeches against the amendment and its Republican supporters. His tour did the president more harm than good. Republicans won a veto-proof 2/3 majority in both houses of Congress. From that point on, Congress would control Reconstruction. Congress puts the South under military rule. In 1867, Congress laid out its plan for Reconstruction in a series of laws known as the Reconstruction Acts. These acts outlined a process for admitting Southern states back into the Union. The South was to be divided into 5 districts, each controlled by federal troops. Election boards in each state would register male voters, both black and white, who were loyal to the Union. Southerners who had actively supported the Confederacy would not be allowed to vote. The voters would elect conventions to write new state constitutions. The constitutions had to grant African Americans the right to vote. The voters would then elect state legislatures, which required to ratify the 14th Amendment. In addition, Congress enacted 2 laws designed to keep Johnson from interfering with its Reconstruction plan. The Command of the Army Act limited the president's power as Commander-in-Chief of the Army. The Tenure of Office Act barred the president from firing certain federal officials without the advice and consent of the Senate. President Johnson faces impeachment. President Johnson blasted both of these laws as unconstitutional restrictions on his power. To prove his point, he fired Secretary of War Edward Stanton, a radical Republican appointed to office by President Lincoln. 2 days later, the House of Representatives voted to impeach Johnson for violating the Tenure of Office Act. The House further charged that Andrew Johnson had brought the high office of the President of the United States into contempt, ridicule, and disgrace, to the great scandal of all good citizens. Johnson then faced trial in the Senate. If 2/3 of the senators found him guilty of any charge, he would be removed from office. During his Senate trial, the president's lawyers argued that Johnson's only crime had been to oppose Congress. Were he to be removed for that reason, no future president will be safe who happens to differ with a majority of the House and Senate. They also quietly spread the word that if acquitted, Johnson would no longer oppose congressional reconstruction. When the votes were cast, Johnson escaped removal by a vote of 36 to 25, just one vote short of the two-thirds majority required.